Michael Spalsbury asks a question. Of the material you brought down from the former Industrial Light and Magic, do you anticipate laying hands on and using everything, or do you consider it, much of it, museum quality, untouchable? No. To me, these racks are breathing, living things. So yeah, I do want to use them. And I want to, I'm making them available to my colleagues. I want this hardware store to be useful to my community. But this is very much in the vein to me of the Metropolitan Museum of Art and their Armor Conservation Lab, where they have acquisitions. The museum has acquired over the years from estates that are armor-making tools, and they use those acquisitions to fix their other acquisitions. I love that. I love the idea. So often museums, we think of museums as taking an object, encasing it in amber or a vitrine, and no one touches it. But the idea of acquisitions being living, breathing things is really exciting to me. No, I think that objects for making are to be used for making. And this actually, where is it? End of life plan. Someone asked me about my end of life plan. Oh, here we go. Eric Beatty. Forgive the morbidity of this question, but do you have an end of life plan for the cave and the collections? Yeah, that's part of this organization is to make this place parsable by others. I love the idea. Look, I don't plan to go for a while, but yes, my family will have to deal with all this crap when I'm dead, and that is a big Megillah, and I would like to make that task as easy for them as I can. I would love all of my tools to become part of a makerspace, hopefully before I die. But, the idea of this collection, again, not being encased in amber, but going someplace where it could be used by people is really important to me. Even though these racks from ILM came in and I installed them here and they are fabulous and they will survive here for years, I still plan to move them into a makerspace at some point because they still tell a story and they will continue to tell that story. Someone once walked into this cave and immediately said, look at all the crap your family's gonna have to deal with when you're dead. And it is really true. I also love the idea of a party garage sale where everything goes for a song. And no one takes advantage of that. But yeah, we had a garage sale at my house a few months ago. And we actually made it a block sale. So like 5 of my neighbors also opened their garages and sold stuff. And it was really, really fun. I loved selling stuff. I loved getting rid of stuff. And also a friend of mine was with us. He was selling some of his stuff and he couldn't believe how cheap we were making everything. But to me, a garage sale is getting your stuff into someone else's house. Like that's the point. Not, oh, well, I paid 40 for it, so I'd really like to get like 20. None of that. None of that. It's $1. Get it out of here. Swear to God. We made like $750 from our garage sale, which again, our friend who was with us all day could not believe we made any money given how cheap we were selling everything. And Carl Gallagher asks a question germane to this as well. How do you know when it's time to cull things? Is that part of the organizing? Yes, it really is. Among the things that are hard for me to cull is storage boxes. Whenever I have built a box to hold something, it's very hard for me to take that box apart, but it's important to do. When I cleaned out Tested's offices, and this is among other things, we are and have been as a tech review site. So we had like a decade and a half's worth of the detritus that you gather when you do that. I was throwing out robots, plural, for a week. And again, I can hear you be like, you threw out robots. I mean, these are things like 12-year-old things from companies that no longer exist. It's unsupportable. I'm not willing to hold on to it until I can find someone who wants to reprogram that. However, like with all my machine tools, when I upgrade, I keep a lot of my machine tool stuff up front for people who have shops. And like people come by and I'm like, oh, you have a lathe? Here, take some of these with you. That is totally, so when I cull in multiple categories. Like I am very willing to throw out stuff that I have never used and it turns out that it hasn't made its way into my process. I also, love things to go to useful homes. That is a big deal to me. So with tools, I hold on to them mostly forever until someone wants one. So I have a whole section where like when people come visit the cave, I'm like, hey, take a look through these tools in case you want anything. No, seriously, if you ever visit the cave, ask where the free pile is because we always have one. And it is worth going through because there's usually some cool stuff in there. Michael Schnell says, does Mrs. Don't Try This ever come to the cave? Not often. No. No, she finds this place overwhelming. Just to be fair, it's totally overwhelming. It is a level of cacophony that she is delighted I have an outlet for that is not in our house. That's absolutely true. It's not to say she doesn't understand what goes on here and how important this place is to me. But you know, we all have our thresholds for certain things. And she finds this place so cacophonous as to be exhausting. But you know, I throw lots of gatherings and parties and fundraisers here, and she comes to those and has been here, you know, hundreds of times. Just in general, it's not part of her regular stop. When I finished the reorg, absolutely, she came right over and like wanted to see how it came out. Ken French says, what have you thought about ceiling space or the loft? How would you use those unconventional spaces better? I want to tell you the loft is really well laid out. Freddie Schramm, my former shop assistant, was in town recently and helped with actually one of the final bits of this shop reorg, and then also went up and re-refined the loft. The loft is the result of several people's incredible efforts, but Freddie really came up with the main design and layout scheme up there, and it's still quite useful to me. So the loft is great. The loft has actually been in a good place for well over a year. The ceiling, however, yeah, we pulled so much out of the ceiling. And I think soon Joey, tested producer Joey Famelli and I are going to embark on a new lighting scheme for this whole space. So I think we may end up with some soft boxes in the ceiling here for a much more balanced light. But at the same time, Norm really likes dramatic lighting for his photos and his thumbnails. So we're going to include multiple lighting schemes so that we don't have to keep running around turning off shop tools and turning off the house lights. I'm still operating mostly with like, what, 1, 2, 3 neon bulbs that were here when I first got here. Lighting is in dire need of an upgrade. And the same thing will happen in the main shop area where there's all the crap in the ceiling, the sharks, etc. All that's coming out. I'm gonna go install some cable hangers into the beams of the building, and we're gonna put up a lighting grid that will give, again, a much more balanced lighting, better for shooting, filming. And I will say, like all of these things that I've described, the Sortimo racks, and then the rebagging the Sortimo, and then redoing this list, redoing the lighting for this. Some of these things are things I've been wanting to do for a decade, and some of them had only occurred to me a few months ago. It hadn't occurred to me until Joey suggested it, that we drop a lighting grid into the main shop, and I think that's actually gonna make the space feel much bigger and more useful. At the same time, like the very first time I got a Sortimo and looked at the sides of it and saw, it may be like they could accommodate drawer slides. And then I thought how amazing that would be. I have wanted to do this for like 15 years. I've wanted my Sortimos on drawer slide platforms. Can I tell you how tiring it is to custom cut and bend 68 shelf platforms. Actually, 70 now that I think about it. Yeah, I did 70 all told. There were the 2 test ones, 1 and 2. And then when I ordered aluminum from a new company I've worked with called Max Metals here in the Bay Area, they delivered me, I ordered 70 sheets and they sent 73. I really appreciate that. I just assumed I had the exact number, and I messed up 5 of them, and I set them aside for fixing later, and then I noticed at the end I had 3 extra than I should have. So thank you, Max Metals, for the slightly extra order. And that's like frankly, if you're working with a good vendor, like that's the kind of thing they kick towards you every now and then. D Friendly has a question about the reorganization, and he's curious about the plan for the welding area I was using for my 3D printer farm. Right. So the 3D printers are over here in the corner, and that used to be what I considered the metalworking area. But I have never done a large amount of metalwork in this shop, simply because I'm terrified of setting the place on fire. So I'm super careful about doing that, and I just rarely do it. But I have a beautiful, big, fat Lincoln MIG and a big, fat Lincoln TIG, and they're both in perfect condition. And I have dreams of using them slightly more regularly. I mean, a TIG welder would be the perfect thing for me to get good at. So maybe that's one of the things that's on my roster for this year, is to get better at TIG welding. Is to actually get good at it. It's to actually understand what the hell's going on. I have done it in a pinch a couple of times, but it's not pretty what I have done. Here's my thing about TIG welding. I go and look at sites about TIG welding, and here's what pushes me away from thinking TIG welding is learnable, is I will watch someone like this old Tony do a beautiful video about TIG welding, and he'll do this TIG weld, and to me, it looks like what would be for me the best weld I've ever done. And he will say, I'm sorry about how crappy this weld looks, but it's the best I can do. The gulf between what I can see and what I'm hearing feels massive. But yeah, a TIG welder would be a great welder to have in here because it doesn't shoot sparks all over the place in its normal operation. So I would be able to like set it out and work and feel safe about that. Don't get me wrong, I would love a full metalworking area someday, and I do go on to Craigslist occasionally and look at welding layout tables, because I would like one of those. And Andrew Montgomery has gifted Super Chat and asks, I'm knee-deep in resetting and cleaning my shop and a bit overwhelmed, but it has surprises. What's the best thing you found in your recent cave reset you forgot you even had? Oh, I found some workbench covers, like cutting surfaces, stuck behind my Sortimo racks. And those are fantastic. Basically, they're cutting mats, but I can cut them to any size I want, so they can go on top. That I didn't know I had. I was really psyched to see those again. Mostly it's seeing the corners of my shop. Some of these racks have been against the wall for more than a decade, and the dust and crap that gets back there is amazing. I've definitely found a few drill bits. I've definitely found lots of ball bearings, and endless numbers of the white Nerf balls. That is absolutely true. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support us even further, you can by becoming a tested member. Details are, of course, below, but it includes all sorts of perks, and we're building them all the time. You get advanced word and behind-the-scenes photos of some of our projects. Questions, you get to ask direct questions during my live streams, and we have some members-only videos, including the Adam real-time series of unbroken, unedited shots of me working here in the shop. They are weirdly meditative. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one.